Welcome to the last wrap up for 2020. It's the December wrap up. I think my first wrap up was December 2019, and boy, am I a little more comfortable doing these now, except occasionally I'm just still like, where are the words? Never good with words. I can read words, but compiling thoughts sometimes a little dicey. But if you're new here, I typically put them in like groups when I do my reading, so I don't do it from lowest rating to highest. I don't do it as I read them. I just put them in different like recommendation groups, and each month it's a little different depending on what I read. So this month I have 3 categories. I have fantasy, sci-fi, and miscellaneous, and as always I'll have timestamps in the description below and links to bookshop.org in case you want to look into purchasing these books. I do receive a commission if you use those links, and it does support independent bookstores, so if you're interested, feel free to check that out. No pressure, so let's get into it, starting with the fantasy reads. And this month I had 2 rereads, so let's start with that. I started off the month, I read A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is the second book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. This is the 3rd time I've read this book. It is a really great escapism fantasy romance for me. I do think each time I read it, I do see its flaws more and more. So even though it has the 5-star, it's not the perfect 5-star. It's the "it keeps me up till 3 in the morning" 5-star. It's the "I cannot put this down, I keep wanting to reread it" favorite book for myself. And I love the discussions of having to deal with a loss and gaining something new and better for yourself. I read it at a perfect time in my life for something like that, and I think it's addictive fun. So I don't really know how to do a synopsis for the second book in this series. As I said before, I feel like this is one of the cornerstone books for BookTube, but this follows Feyre, who is a human that had to kill a wolf for her family to survive, and then it turns into a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and things happen, and then the second book happens. Really, it's just a fantasy romance. It's kind of sort of a Persephone retelling if you wanted to know what the second book was. And if you like the fantasy romance genre, I think it's a pretty fun time. Now, the other reread I had, and I just bought this copy, so you guys are seeing it for the first time, but The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. This was my second read of it. I first read it, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, and I love it even more this time around. I thought about upgrading it to a full 5 stars, but it's not quite a 5-star read, but it is a high 4-star. I love this story so much. This is the story about Vasya, who's a girl who grows up in this northern village of Russia. I believe this is pretty historical fiction, based in Russia. And basically what happens is, as she grows up, she gets a stepmother, and both her and her stepmother have the sight. They can see creatures that are based off their folklore religion, and are basically, they're around because people believe in them. They're very, like Tinkerbell from Peter Pan. If you believe in them, they exist. And although Vasya's lived with them her whole life and is comfortable, her stepmother is very not comfortable with it. She grew up in the capital. And when a priest comes to town, things change. There's a lot of fear added to the situation, and it messes with this balance that there used to be between the pagan religion and the Christian religion in this area. And it leads to things happening. It is a beautifully atmospheric winter read. It has the creepiest of great creepy vibes, and I love it. I love Vasya and how she just is determined to forge her own path. She is one of my favorite characters of all time, and I am so happy I reread it, and I highly recommend this for the winter season. The next one I'll talk about was a complete wonderful surprise for me, and this is Each of Us a Desert by Marco Chiru. I have a review for this because I want people to pick this book up. Oh, it's so cool. It's like dystopian fantasy based with Latin culture. There's really cool magic and like animal like guardians, and it's a journey that really is about the journey. Like, that's the plot of the story. We have Xochi, who is from this village where she is kind of a memory, not taker, but she takes people's stories and then she gives them back to Solis, their god. And in this way, they remain like a good civilization. Like, nothing bad will happen to them, because the lore in this world is that basically Solis came and burned the lands, and if they don't do this, if they don't basically keep coming to her for a type of confession, it'll all go poorly. But it's exhausting to her. She's 14. She wants her own life. She wants her own story. So she goes on this adventure, and normally I'm not big on adventure, journey for the sake of journey stories, but this one stole my heart. I loved it so much. It's so lyrical. I did listen to this on audiobook, but like I say in the review, only listen to the audiobook if you are comfortable with hearing Spanish words, because there's a lot of incorporation of Spanish vocabulary, which could be jarring if you're just not used to hearing them, if you're more used to reading them. But man, I loved the world. I loved the intrigue of the world. Like, there's so much you don't know about the world. It reminded me of when I read Metro 2033, how you didn't really understand the stations, and each time Artemis, I think that was his name, I don't remember. No, it wasn't Artemis. Regardless, each time that main character went from one station to another, he learned more about this world and how it became this dystopian place it was. It was great. And the way that her gift works, or curse, depending on who you ask, is you get to basically learn a lot of people's backstories because they keep giving their story to Xochi. And I just thought that was a nice narrative twist. And the whole story is Xochi talking to Solis. And I just loved it. I'll stop gushing now. There is a review, but this is a young adult story that I just think deserves more people getting it in their hands, especially if any of this sounds like it's your type of thing. It's just beautiful. The next one we'll talk about is Jade War by Fonda Lee. This one I really liked, but not as much as Jade City. I have a series review, a should you read this series if you want to check it out, but this is the sequel to Jade City. So we're in Kakan, and you have these two kind of Jade Mafia families. We follow the No Peak clan, there's also the Mountain clan. After Jade City, there's a certain tension between the clans, and this takes place over the following years after Jade City, and we're following the No Peak family. This is a very great slow burn family political drama. And I think for me, the key to why I didn't love this as much as Jade City is Jade City I had no expectations about pacing. I just picked it up and read it and I was like, this is great. And this one I thought would be faster paced because everyone was like, oh, wait till Jade War. Jade War had me going crazy. And Jade War has crazy things. But it's not like that fast-pacedness that you normally, I think, associate with that type of praise. So for me, I went into it with the wrong expectations. So I still really liked it. It was a great read. I cannot wait to reread it because the payoff, like just the way she structures her stories is so intentional, and I really value that. And so this was really fun, but not like, I think I rated Jade City a low 5-star. This is a high 4-star, but it didn't quite like, if I really thought about it objectively, it just couldn't be a 5-star, even though like I was like, and everyone else rates it 5 stars. What am I going to do? But I did really like it. I would recommend it, especially check out that video, because I do talk about a lot of the pros and cons depending on who you are as a fantasy reader. So those are the fantasy reads I had. Now let's talk about the science fiction, because this is the month where I finally read more science fiction again, and I was so happy about it. I need to do it more often. Let's start with A Memory Called Empire, which I just finished yesterday. Oh, this was a reread. I love it. I just filmed my review for it before this video, so the review will be up after the wrap-up, but a review is coming. It's kind of a very discussion-y, chatty review, but this is a really dense, complex space opera story with political intrigue and mystery. I would not pick it up unless you like to engage with what you read with, and what I mean by engage is like, when I was having the most fun is I was asking myself thematic questions and like basically just like, I don't know, just thinking a lot with the work. I was doing a lot of that. I had to look up a lot of words because there was a lot of the vocabulary I did not know. There's a lot of poetry and complex prose for myself. Like, there was just a lot of work I put into A Memory Called Empire, but boy, did I love it. It was so good for me. And like, I kind of knew it would be. This was a reread, but like, at first, I thought I was in the middle, kind of in the slow part that I first found the first time around. I was just like, oh, maybe I don't like this as much. That's a bummer. And then the ending happened, and then no, I loved it. It was great. So I wouldn't say this is for everyone. It's definitely not like one of those books you pick up for a quick read. It takes some time, but for me, these are the pros that make me sit down in them, and I'm just like, yes, this was pretty. I have to be in a thinking mood for that. That is not my average reading state, but man, I was highlighting quotes that I thought were beautiful. I loved watching these characters interact because on a reread, I was really able to like see the interactions. I felt like my first time around, I was just trying to get my bearings. So on this one, I could really see the sass and the sarcasm between them, and it was great. And then I finally finished How Long Till Black Future Month by N.K. Jemisin, and I have a review vlog thing for it. It's not spoilery, but I do a vlog where after I read 2 or 3 stories, I check in and say what I thought about them, because this is pretty long. It's like 400 pages, and I knew that I was going to take my time with it, and that I wouldn't remember at the end everything I thought. So that's a video that's out. I'll have it in the cards. But this is a solid 4-star collection for me. I love all the ideas Jemisin chooses to explore. There's a lot of talk about food. There's many different unique locations, like there's Italy, New Orleans, New York City, there's the South, there's different time periods. I think most of these are science fiction, but some are fantastical, and I just really liked all the things she chose to play with in the short story narrative. I loved the introduction, but I mean, I think it's well known. I will read anything Jemisin writes. I would read her grocery list. But I really like this. I have decided, now that I've read this, I've read everything Jemisin has out except for Emergency Skin. I would not start with the short story collection. I mean, it's fine if you do, obviously. Like, I'm not saying you've messed up if you've started there. But if you're one of those people who always asks, where should I start with Jemisin? Well, A, I have a video for that if you want to talk about the novels. But I think that this is something you should read after you've read some of her novels, because I think her short work is very different from her long form work, and that makes sense. I think how you structure a short story is just very different from how you structure a full-length narrative, with the exception of the Dreamblood duology short story is very similar in its writing style to the short story in here. So the short story, I forget what it's called, but Narcomancy maybe, is very similar to how the Dreamblood duology works out. But man, I really liked the variety in here. It's definitely one that I'm going to pick up and peruse again at a later date, but that was really fun. So I also read Seven Devils for the Space Sirens Book Club, which hasn't happened yet, but I'll have the date linked to down below for the live stream. And this was really fun. It's a high 3-star for me. I think there were enough plot problems for myself that I was just like, I'm so confused why we even did all of this. Like, I loved the character dynamics. I haven't told you what this is about. This is kind of like Star Wars and Firefly plus a little bit of Throne of Glass mixed together is this book. You have a rebellion against this empire, and you have this group of people who together are trying to stop the empire from doing something bad. It's in space. It's pretty fun. I don't think there's anything super original going on here, but it was a fun time how all these pieces were put together. I loved a lot of the character tropes. I liked all the flashbacks to get to know our cast better. It is a large cast. It's like 4 to 6 point of views, I'm pretty sure. Might more be 4. But I really liked that, and I liked all of our characters. Like I said, my main issue, and this is not going to be an issue for everyone, because this wouldn't be an issue for me if I was like watching an action movie, and I feel like this book is kind of like the action movie of books to some extent, is just that there were decisions that were made, and I was like, but why? This doesn't feel smart. It just didn't feel smart. I couldn't buy into why the decisions were made. But I did love the twists that happen. I'm excited for the next book. This is the first in a duology, and I believe the second book comes out this year. But I thought this author duo did a great job. I really couldn't tell that there was a difference in authorial voice, even though there were 2 authors writing this. And it was really fun. And I had a great time. And so if you need like a good medium to fast pace, kind of whole team comes together to bring down the Empire book, I'd pick it up. It was pretty fun. The last sci-fi I will talk about is the best book of the month, and that's Revenant Gun. I love this book. This is the last book in the Machinery's Empire series, well, not including the short story anthology. Guys. It's a 5-star. It's so good. I am so excited. This stuck the landing for the book and for the series. I was so happy. I picked this book up, and at chapter 1, I was like, guys, I think this is going to be a 5-star book. I love that feeling. You know that feeling when you pick up a book and you're like, everything that's happening is everything I want. I am ready. That's how I felt. We got so much goodness with characters that I loved. The new characters we had brought in were fascinating and funny. There was great humor. There was great theming. It was really good. I can't wait to reread this series. If you're curious about the series, I do have a world building intro review for the first book, Nine Fox Gambit, because this is some of the more complicated world building I've ever recommended on my channel. I do think it's worth it. I think the second and third books are much more accessible than the first book. I still love the first book. I think it goes 3, 1, 2 for my enjoyment of the series. But like, it's so good. Like, I know it's complicated and it's not going to be for everyone, but it was the perfect series for me, and I think finding your perfect series is like such a fulfilling experience. So that's how I feel about finishing the Machinery's Empire with Remnant Gun. Now, on to the miscellaneous category. We've got, for my local book club, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. This is a literary fiction short work. It's like 240 pages by a poet. And it goes through basically this son writing his mother a letter. His mother is illiterate. He is Vietnamese American, kind of first generation, although technically born in Vietnam, but raised in America, so an American, at least by his definition. And this letter is like kind of one of those cathartic letters that your therapist maybe tells you to write if you are angry at someone. But not just anger, like it wasn't just anger, but it was him just, I think, putting everything out there that he couldn't quite ever figure out how to say to his mom. And you follow him in like his teenage years into college and his struggles with drugs and his first love. There's a lot of heavy subjects here. So definitely go in looking for trigger warnings, because he also talks about the PTSD his family has from Vietnam. And what was really interesting to me is this is probably one of the first adult literary fiction works that really touches on the decade that I grew up. This is talking about the 90s and the early 2000s. That's when I was the same age as this author, maybe a few years younger, but the things he references, I'm like, yeah, I understand what you're talking about. And this is the first time I experienced that. I think initially finishing this book, I didn't know if it'd be a 3 or 4 star because it was work, it's poetry. I don't always connect with the moments when he went a little bit from the narrative into the stream of conscious, because he does that kind of back and forth. But the discussion we had at book club was really great and kind of brought it up to a 4-star level for me. And I don't know, it was just really beautiful. I don't think I'll ever reread it, but I appreciated this story like just existing. And kind of accidentally ending on probably my least favorite book of the month, but that would be Misery by Stephen King. Ryan and I did a duo review for this. If you're interested, we did this for the World Hopper Secret Santa video, and this is fine. It was a 3-star book. This is the story of Paul. He writes some popular pulpy fiction, and he gets into a car accident because he makes bad decisions in life. And Annie finds him and brings him back to health, but in very unethical ways. And she is his biggest fan and wants him to bring her favorite character back to life. And he better do that, or else, I mean, it's Stephen King. I feel like you understand that this is a thriller and where it's going. So it was fine. I think the meta of it kind of saved it for me a little bit, because you kind of get to watch, this is super glary, I'm going to put up an image, but you kind of get to watch Paul go into his writing process, which I thought was really interesting. I don't know. It was a lot of work and I wasn't having that much fun. I don't mind work if I'm having fun, but I wasn't having that much fun. So it's a 3-star because it was fulfilling, and I did like talking about it with Ryan and filming that video, and I would recommend it. It's not a bad book at all. So that's the end of this wrap-up. Those were the 10 things I read, and all of them worked for the Reindeer Games Readathon for the Shelf Space Book Club. I was part of Team Grinch, and I was just really happy I was able to make all these books work for those prompts and help my team. I don't know if we're gonna win, but I am happy with what I've accomplished. So what was your best read of December? Because I had some great ones. I mean, mine's Revenant Gun, followed closely by Bear and the Nightingale and Memory Called Empire, but those are rereads, so I'm not surprised. And with that, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.